what's deeper than performance, the true parts of you,
Yeah.
not what you do. And that's a hard one to unwind because
Yeah.
you're having to figure out, okay, what measuring stick am I going to use
Yeah.
now? Not only that, but is that measuring stick healthy? Is it appropriate? Is it malleable?
Hey, cuties. Welcome to the Dark Side of Perfect. I'm your host, Maggie, and today we have a very special episode featuring a former professor of mine from when I got my MBA. And I'm so excited for her to give us her knowledge and her experience to teach us some things about how to present ourselves in a way that makes us more confident, how to do some values alignment, some self assessment, and then also to learn a little bit about empathy and how we can use our perfect girl result of people pleasing to find that line of empathy that isn't overwhelming for us. I do want to reiterate before we get started that I will say the term perfect girl a lot in this episode because I'm talking about school and I'm thinking about it from my own lens as a perfect girl. However, I'm using it sort of as a universal term like y'all or guys, so it can mean anyone. And I think that everyone can learn something from this episode. There is a ton to talk about, so let's talk about it. Hi, Cory.
Hi, Maggie.
Welcome to the Dark Side of Perfect.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Do you want to introduce yourself a little bit of why you're a good person to talk about this topic to the listeners before we get started?
Sure. So, my name's Cory Cunningham. I am a professor at the Leeds School of Business at the University of Colorado. And I study and teach the human side of business. I love bringing attention to the humanness of business and the role that emotions play, skills that can help us to show up as our best selves, to have the kind of impact that we want to have.
So, when I first met Cory, I was taking her communications class where she was teaching me about public speaking, how to be a better presenter, and how to be more confident in how you show up in yourself to be a better communicator in business. But I was also a TA for her for one of her leadership classes where she was teaching people how to be a better leader through empathy, self reflection, diversity, things like that, and some of the humanness of business. Which one
Yeah.
of those classes is your favorite?
God, it's so hard to answer. I love MBA classes because MBAs, they've already had their foot in the door, at least in terms of real work. It's a deeper, richer kind of conversation that we can have. And MBAs, y'all bring so much more to the conversation in ways that I cannot speak to, which is always super fun for me to get
Yeah.
to learn from y'all. With my undergrads, I do most of the giving and it's fun conversations, but it's a different kind of
More teaching rather than like a
exactly.
community learning together
That's
kind of a deal.
exactly right.
That makes sense.
Exactly.
Well, for today's topic, how long have you been a professor?
God, so well over 20 years.
That's
I've
what I
been
thought. A long
here
time.
10 years.
Cool. So you've obviously seen hundreds of students, both older,
Yep.
younger, from all walks of life.
Yes.
And so I want to use that experience today to talk
Hmm.
about perfect girl life. In this podcast, we talk a lot about perfect girls and the results of perfect being people pleasing, perfectionism, and what I call the should trap, which is like
Yes.
presenting yourself as someone that you think other people want to see from you. So I want to talk about what happens when the grading stops and when a perfect girl high achiever leaves school, and then how that outward presentation can feel like masking or code switching and following the external expectation. But I want to get your opinion on how to use it as a tool to build confidence
Yes.
and how to reflect our inner selves. And then lastly, when I was a TA for you talked a ton about self-reflection and empathy. So I want to
Yes.
bring some of that in here and figure out how we can turn people pleasing and that skill that we've
Yes.
learned as perfect girls to escape the should trap and look inward to be our best selves.
Love it.
Any thoughts on those before we jump in?
This is a meaty topic,
Yeah.
and there's a lot to dig into. These are my favorite kind of conversations. It's good.
I'm excited. I think it'll be good. Okay, so I guess before we jump into the action steps, we should talk about kind of the philosophical what it looks like as a perfect girl.
Mhm.
So, you've obviously seen a lot of high achieving women, men
Mhm.
as students. What is the biggest shift that you notice when they leave the classroom and when they get out into the real world? And does it ever feel like once the grading stops that high achievers kind of lose their voices and their path?
What I have noticed is that, particularly in business college, and then even more so with graduate school, in those particular academic areas, students are already incredibly high expectations for themselves. That's been instilled in them. And so the amount of self pressure is extremely high. These are also students who consistently rise to the occasion. So I can talk about this more in a second, but that is not only noticeable to me, it is worrisome to me.
Yeah.
Having said that, I think that that shift that you're referencing, we're finally out of school. And so the kind of evaluations that people are making about us is now different rubrics, it's different measuring sticks. It's hard to know how you're doing. And I will tell you straight up, I am actively still working on this stuff today,
Mhm.
that pressure internal. And the idea in my mind that I've seen so many students get hung up in, myself included, is the definition that we have for success and tying that to performance
Yeah.
as opposed to what's deeper than performance, the true parts of you,
Yeah.
not what you do. And that's a hard one to unwind.
It's interesting that you say that because in this podcast, I've been talking a lot about my path, obviously, and
Yeah.
like my journey and how I had all of this internal pressure and
Yeah.
how you want to get good grades and you want to do every single
Yeah.
extracurricular
Yeah.
activity and you have all this internal pressure and then it's like who is telling you to do that, and honestly it's no one, it's
Yeah.
me and all
No.
this self pressure.
Yes.
And then you graduate and it's like I don't have like a traditional job right now and
Yeah.
it's like am I doing the right thing? Should I
Yeah.
be doing this? And like everything is measured differently and the pressure is way different.
Yes.
So it feels like it shouldn't be as hard because it's different, but it's honestly harder in its own way.
Yes. Yes. Because
Yeah.
you're having to figure out, okay, what measuring stick am I going to use
Yeah.
now? Not only that, but is that measuring stick healthy? Is it appropriate?
Yeah.
Is it malleable?
Yeah.
All of those things. And the answers change.
Yeah. Depending on what you're doing.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that it's fun in quotations to be in the bleachers during this time of students' lives to watch that shift happen because everybody feels grossly inadequate. Everybody feels uncomfortable. Everybody feels self conscious. Everybody is like, what the hell am I doing? I have no idea. I'm making this up as
Yeah.
I go. And then you begin to see those same students gain experience. Like, I can do that. I can't. I can pay my bills. I did 2 months in a row. I paid my own bill. Nobody had to help me. I covered and it's like that confidence that
Yeah.
comes. So it's a very scary time to be in it.
Yeah.
But from the outside looking in, it's one of the coolest things ever. And it's a necessary step.
The
Like,
uncertainty has to happen before you find out that you can pay your own
has
rent and
to.
get that confidence.
If not, you don't ever reach that point of self sufficient, confident, I can do hard things
Yeah. Right.
kind of mentality.
And I also think that that uncertainty can happen several times in your life. Like,
Yeah.
obviously, you see it at a time where kids are on their own for the first time and
Yes.
they're like trying to pay their own way and
Yes.
figure it out.
Yes.
But once you leave college, there's another level of that uncertainty where, yeah, I can pay my rent, but now what am I going to do with my life?
Exactly. Am I going to get married? Or,
Yeah.
oh my God, I'm now 40 and I didn't have kids.
Yeah.
And what the hell am I doing? The good news and bad news is it's never done.
Yeah. It's definitely like a roller coaster of like the peak of, "Oh, yeah, I'm in a good phase," and then the dip of, "Oh, now there's a lot of uncertainty," but that peak will always come back, and that down will
Yes.
also always come
Yes.
back.
Yes. What can tell you though at this point in my life is the down times, the times where you lose clarity, lose confidence, those get shallower and shallower,
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
yeah.
So it's like each time you go down, it's never as far as where you were before, which is good news, right? You're
Yeah,
making progress, you're gaining insight, you're
mhm.
developing empathy,
Getting that perspective.
the perspective. But yeah, I mean, I feel significantly more confident in my life today than I did when I was 20. I still don't know what the hell I'm doing now. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So part of this never goes away. I was raised to work very hard and to be a high achiever.
Me too.
Everybody in my family is. That's what we did. But even though on paper, okay, I have as high a degree as you can get.
Mm,
I teach at an R1 university. You know, I have advanced in my career as far as I can possibly go, but I don't make money. So it's very easy to look at my life depending on the angle and go, is it
yeah.
really? This is lacking in success. You could also look at my exact same life and go, holy shit, that's impressive.
It just
I,
depends on the angle you're looking
I,
at it
I
from.
oscillate back and forth.
Yeah. And I think that's normal. It's
Yeah,
like to
yeah,
oscillate between the angles that you're looking at your
yeah,
life from.
yeah.
And maybe that's part of what contributes to the highs and lows of life is you're looking at your life from different
A
angles
100%.
instead of going on a roller coaster of it. You just keep going in a circle and looking at it from different angles.
Yeah,
And that's what is leading to these uncertain dips.
it is. But it also gives you the ability to go, oh, I recognize this.
Yeah.
Oh, been here. This goes away. This isn't permanent. This leads to something else. So, yeah, that this isn't new. And there's something comforting in that.
Yeah. So to bring us back on topic a little bit, a lot of what being a perfect girl is the perception and like
Yes.
obviously the angles that we're looking at our life from, but also what we think other people are looking at our
Yes.
life from. So do you see a difference between how we present ourselves versus how we're being perceived and how that influences confidence?
Yes. I think first and foremost, I tell all my classes this. My favorite thing to think about is me. My favorite thing to talk about is me.
Right.
Your favorite thing to think about and talk about is you. We are incredibly self focused beings. And the discrepancy from the internal perspective, it's so often, God, everybody's watching, everyone's paying attention, everyone's noticing, everyone's judging. This is so embarrassing. And so then that fuels that need to perform in a certain way, to look in a certain way, to counteract that stuff. The truth of the matter is, people are focused on themselves, not on you.
But that's a hard lesson to get into your
It's
head.
so hard because that thing of everybody is the star of their own movie, that's not just a cliche. It's so true. And I have to tell myself a lot. Like, nobody gives a shit, Corey. No one cares. No one's watching. And if they do happen to look up and notice, they're not fixated on it.
Yeah.
They're not passing judgment on it. But in our minds, it's this huge thing and it carries so much weight. And
Yeah.
that is incredibly hard to step out of that.
Mhm.
Um, I seriously have inside jokes with two of my friends where it's a known thing that we do for each other when we get to I'm the center of the universe to be
Mhm.
like, no one cares. No one's watching. You're just not that important. Like to have people be able to remind you of that is huge. Because as soon as somebody says that to me, like, you're not that special. It's like,
I think you're special.
okay, you're right. You're right. Like, it's like, oh my God, it's so funny.
Yeah.
And it immediately kind of takes that pressure off.
So is that your biggest tip to break that mindset then is to have people tell you you're not special?
I
But,
think
like, in a cute way?
you want it to be the right people that
Yeah.
tell you that, people who, just like you said, know how special you are
Yeah,
and also recognize you're inflating things way too much right now.
right. And, sometimes you just have those days where you are feeling overly insecure, and then sometimes you have days where you feel like you're on top of the world.
Oh, 100%.
And it's
100%.
easy on those days that you're feeling insecure to have someone there who's like, "I know that you're special. However,
Yes.
no one is fixating on the things that you're fixating on right now.
Yes. Yes.
I promise you that shirt looks good on you."
Yes. Yes. No one is walking around thinking, "Oh my god, did you see Corey's hair? What
Yeah,
was going on?" No one is thinking that.
yeah.
You're just not that important. And I think that's vital to remember that. I also think it's important to, inside yourself, begin to be very intentional with how you are defining your value. If in my head I place all my value on, do I look the right way? Am I physically the right way? That's all anybody else is going to evaluate me on. I have the ability to help people focus on certain parts of me and not on others. I have agency in that. And so highlighting my intelligence or my heart or my sense of humor and noticing how that impacts not just me, but other people, that's much more impressive and valuable in terms of your worth than what you do.
And I think that's an interesting point to building self-confidence also, because, like,
Yes.
obviously we're talking about how you're not special, you're not important,
Right, right.
but that doesn't build confidence. What does build confidence is giving yourself back the agency to have
Yes.
people perceive you in a certain light that
Yes.
you value in your own self.
Yes, absolutely.
Like,
Absolutely.
for example, I'm insecure about my intelligence sometimes. Sometimes I have those days,
Yeah.
but obviously I have a master's degree and I'm a smart girl.
Yeah.
Sometimes I just get really insecure about it. So, like, having a good vocabulary and being well spoken and taking the skills that you taught me in our like public speaking
Yeah.
class
Yeah.
has made me better at presenting myself as someone who's very intelligent because that's something that I value in myself and has made me more confident.
Yes. Yes. And that's what I love about teaching
Yeah.
is that no, no, you have a lot more control and power and agency than you are aware of. And this is small stuff. This is low hanging fruit. It doesn't matter how old you are, this is accessible.
Yeah. Plus, you don't have to change anything about yourself to do these things. You
Yeah,
just
no,
have to recognize, like, do a values assessment on yourself and figure out what you
exactly.
value about yourself and figure out how to bring that into light instead of like what's really hot right now is like expanding your vocabulary and having
Yes.
personal curriculum.
Yes.
And those things are important to help with your intelligence. And I'm going to have an episode on them. But also, you can use the tools that you have right now and just make that a bit more apparent.
Absolutely. I think a lot of times as self-focused as we are, there's like a lack of curiosity about ourselves
Yeah.
that especially I think coming out of college, you're in your 20s. Research shows you change more between 25 and 30 than any other time in your entire life.
Being a between 25 and 30, I believe that.
Right? That's a time you're done with school, you're an adult, but you're a young adult. And it's the time when you start going, okay, we have an election coming up. What do I think? Not who are my parents voting for? What are all my friends' parents saying to do? No, no, no. Where you start actually, what do I think? What do I want? What's important to me?
Yeah.
And I think taking time to answer those questions is good.
Yeah. Do you have a good, like, prompt that I could maybe put in the show notes that people could use as a self-reflective tool to figure out what's important to them?
Okay, so I'm thinking of about 5 things right
Okay.
now all at once. So I'm going to try to make this connect the dots here. So one of the things that I think is really important is asking the right questions because the quality of your question determines the quality of your answer. Phrasing questions that start with how might I, and what. tend to be more future oriented as well as action oriented, as opposed to why, which tends to be more reflective and
Yeah,
historical. Why is valuable. But in terms of like growth and advancement, if we frame it starting with what or how, and then thinking about not from the level of, okay, what do I value? Because that's kind of, I don't know,
surface
abstract
level. Yeah,
and surface. And what
yeah,
does that really mean?
yeah. Because this is for you. It's not for someone else.
Exactly.
Like you can go deep.
And you don't, this isn't something to just give lip service to, you
Right.
know?
Right.
But if you phrase it as, what activities bring me joy today? If I think about my top 5 closest relationships, what characteristics or skills would I use to describe them? How might I create or set up opportunities to form new relationships at that same quality of level? Where you start just noticing and asking, getting curious about things you're already doing
Yeah.
that are natural for you. But, oh, if I look back, there's a pattern here,
Yeah.
and those patterns of behavior give us a lot of insight.
I bring this up so much on the podcast is using your daily life and the things that bring you joy as data points and like
Yes.
using your actions and not your feelings as data points.
Ye-
In this case, you could use them to assess kind of your inner values to help you build confidence and project
Yes.
the aspects of yourself that you know are the most important because you've used those data points.
Yes. Exactly. Even how might I use my love of public speaking
Mhm.
to do no, 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 no,
Yeah.
you know, and then seeing what comes to mind,
Yeah.
not having an expectation in terms of answers. That takes focus for a few minutes.
Yeah.
And that's something that we've gotten out of the habit of doing.
And I think what's also important to note is that as perfect girls, we often have an all or nothing mentality. So we want to build all of this confidence
Yeah.
and find all these data points in one fell swoop. But it definitely takes some time. And the things that you value today and want to project, like, oh, I want people to know that I'm intelligent, I'm
Yeah.
gonna
Yeah.
learn to be a better speaker. If you want to do that, that could change. And maybe when you're
Yeah.
in your 40s or something, you have kids, you want to be like, I'm a good mom and I want to be a
Yes.
homemaker. And like
Yes.
your values can change.
And how those values are expressed
Mhm.
can change.
And while we're on this subject, I have an episode called The Should Trap. And if you haven't listened to that episode, go back and listen to it. As we're talking about values and what I value today versus what I value tomorrow, as women, especially, but also men, we use presentation and how we show up to guide perception to make
Mm-hmm.
people think we're meeting expectations.
Mm-hmm.
And getting over that is obviously really hard, which we've talked about.
Mm-hmm.
So, as someone who teaches about speaking, body language, presentation, values alignment, and finding what you
Mm-hmm.
value, do you think the should trap plays a role? And how do you encourage high achievers to break the should trap, figure out what they want, and be more authentic to their values instead of what they think their values should be? I know it's a big question.
God, it's so good though. And okay, so I'm going to answer this, but I also want to be fully transparent. Again, I'm still actively working on
Yeah,
this.
we're all learning every day.
And I'm old enough to be your mom, and I'm still struggling with this
Mhm.
stuff. So I think the should trap is real.
Yeah,
And it is powerful. And I think, especially as young women, it's incredibly difficult. It's hard to even see it, to even know, oh my God, I'm doing
exactly.
that.
It's hard to know that you're in the trap.
And you don't know for a long time.
Yeah,
But this is where things like self-awareness are such game-changing kinds of skills, because I will tell you, I did not do this in my 20s. But again, I'm thinking like 5 things. One of the things, it's easier when I'm not the person who has to do it, but I'm talking to somebody else
hmm
who's doing it. It also helps me because I can't not apply it to myself. But is this idea of, okay, I should be doing this. The expectation is that my life should have this look, this feel, these attributes. But that isn't it doesn't feel super good. It's not natural. Something's a little difficult. I don't, whatever. There's an off feeling. But It's that I'm compelled to do it anyways. Playing that story out to completion. So I should get married and have kids. Okay, what happens if you don't? Then go through and then what happens? And then what happens? And then what happens? Because our brains tend to stop, but we catastrophize, right?
Yeah.
So it's like if I'm not making 250,000 by the time I'm 30, if I haven't made my first million by 32, I'm screwed. I might as well quit because I'm not doing
Yeah.
it. You know what I mean?
Gonna go live in my car.
Exactly. I'm homeless now.
Yeah.
My life is a failure,
Yeah.
and it's like it's really not.
Yeah.
This that you took like 15 leaps in that one,
Yeah.
step. And so a strategy to help bring in some of the logic and rational as opposed to pure emotion is to literally play those out to completion, the story. Right.
Yeah.
And then what happened? And then what happened? And then what happened? So that you can see, even if it's in your mind's eye, this doesn't carry the weight ultimately that I'm placing on it.
Yeah.
So I need to adjust that. But then also being really in touch with your inner voice and gut. What I can tell you for sure is that your gut will never lie to you. I know the times that I have not listened to my gut because it was physically
Felt it.
uncomfortable
Yeah.
and bad things happened. The easy thing to do is to go with the outward pressure and ignore the gut, rationalize it away, explain it away, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
If you have the courage and awareness to be in tune with your gut, you talk about a competitive edge. I mean,
And as someone, also trying to break out of the should trap, if I'm feeling like I'm masking way too hard and I'm feeling very performative and like I can't follow my gut because outward is easier, but maybe just because
mm-hmm,
I'm rationalizing because
mm-hmm.
I'm a perfect girl. What are some ways in your classes or in life that you've learned to recognize that and pull back to be a better leader, a better speaker, a better
Mhm.
person rather than just what we think we should be doing?
So, in many ways, this is counterintuitive. We tend to associate being an effective, impactful leader means that I'm perfect. That's Nothing could actually be further from the truth. The most effective, high performing leaders across industry, across culture, across time are not the people who do it perfectly. They're the people who screw up and who own it, who you can connect with, who you can relate to, you can see yourself in them. And it works every time. It still shocks me every time when I can feel that I'm too performative and it's just a little too slick and it looks pretty, but I'm not having that connection that I thrive on.
Yeah.
Those are red flags to me that I need to start telling the truth
Mhm.
more. In particular, the parts that are messy. I hate that. I work so hard to make those messy parts not visible. Like that's the whole goal. And then there are times when I decide to pull the curtain back and go, okay, here's the truth. This is embarrassing. This is not my proudest moment. This was very humbling.
Yeah.
It's in those times when I let people see the messiness that they embrace me.
Yeah.
Like they like me more. They respect me more. And again, if I can step back from it, it makes sense. But on its face, it violates every expectation that I had. It's like, no, 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 no. What people like and they're drawn to is how pretty it looks. That's actually not what they're drawn to.
Yeah. They like the humanness of business.
Scent. They want to know, you sometimes suck. You have embarrassed yourself. Me too. Okay.
A relational aspect, then you can see their point of view, they can see your point of view, and then you can build a
Oh,
stronger foundation based on that.
yes.
And I think this is a perfect segue into empathy.
Yeah.
So, as someone who teaches about empathy and leadership and how it works in business, do you want to give us quick spiel on why empathy is a high level leadership skill and not something that we should look back on as like, oh, I'm a people pleaser. Oh, I don't want to step into their shoes. Oh, everything has to be perfect all the time.
Yeah. So when we talk about empathy, the ability to put yourself in someone else's shoes. it sounds so easy, is incredibly hard to do. And this goes back to what we were talking about at the start,
Yeah.
where it's like my favorite thing to think about is me.
Right.
So if I'm going to think about you, I have to be intentional with
Mhm.
that. It takes effort. I have to be motivated internally
Mhm.
to put myself on the back burner and focus on you.
Yeah.
So already that's a tall ask, right?
Mhm.
I think that we can get ourselves into trouble if we overachieve in either direction. Which were you talking about? Like if I am too focused on empathizing, like if I were
Yeah.
you, what would I think? Instead of
Yeah. So
like losing myself in the process of that?
Yeah. So, as a perfect girl, what we've talked about a lot is people pleasing.
Yeah.
And at its core, it being responding to what someone else wants and trying to anticipate their feelings overly so that you don't bring any of yourself to the conversation because
Uh-huh.
you want to do stuff for other people. You want to be perfect for them and be perceived as perfect and be a people pleaser. And so, trying not to be too empathetic, but
Yeah.
like bringing yourself in and knowing your values. Because I feel like that's the hardest part about coming out of being a perfect girl is that you do focus on yourself a little bit more and you have to speak your mind a little bit more to
Yes.
get that confidence. And so, obviously, empathy is a really good leadership skill
Yeah.
because then you can put yourself in other people's
Yeah.
shoes, but without overdoing
Yeah.
it to
Yeah.
the point of
Yeah.
being a people pleaser and falling back into that perfect girl lifestyle that you're trying to escape.
So, God, this is such a good conversation. Um, so this idea of empathy gives me insight into what you are possibly thinking and feeling, but there's nothing objectively accurate about it at all. Honestly, I'm just making shit up
Yeah.
that I think maybe you're feeling or
Yeah.
thinking. So it's really a reflection of myself, not a reflection of you. If I place a higher value on your opinion than my opinion, that's when bad things happen. Being empathic does not mean self sacrifice. We tend to equate those. Being empathic doesn't mean deprioritizing yourself.
Yeah.
Wanting to please people by engaging with them using empathy isn't going to get you the sustainable kind of outcome that you're ultimately looking for.
And I think that's why we're trying to break it because
Right.
it's not sustainable.
It is not.
And we think of it as self-sacrificing, like you said.
Yes. And in fact, it ends up being repulsive is too strong of a word, but it ends up being ew,
Yeah.
ew. Like,
Icky.
yes, it's it.
Yeah.
And what we forget is that people actually are drawn to clarity of boundaries,
Yeah.
clarity of opinion, clarity of expectations. And culturally, we have set it up so that if women show up that way, well, you're a selfish bitch.
Yeah.
And instead of, no, 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 it isn't being a selfish bitch. It's
It's being an
actually
autonomous person.
no question. And if people are honest, they respect that significantly more.
Yeah.
So there's so many mixed messages that especially young people, young women are getting and trying to figure out which one do I listen to because I'm supposed to be nice. But then what about me? And if I care too much about me, now I'm like a selfish, entitled,
Mm.
whatever. I'd encourage people to start questioning that.
Yeah.
Who says?
Do you have any concrete tips for cultivating empathy while maintaining those boundaries and like keeping your self growth, especially as a woman in like the workplace? What I've tried doing recently is making small decisions that are kind of like inconsequential, don't matter. Like if my husband asks me where we should go out to eat, I'll
Yes.
say where I want to
Yes.
go eat instead of saying I don't know, because then that's a decision.
Yes.
And even if I'm drawn to the indecisive, I don't care where we eat, I don't
Yeah.
know where I wanna
Yeah.
eat, I will make a decision anyway
Yeah.
because that's somewhere small that I can start to have and then we can have a conversation if he wants to eat
Yes.
somewhere else, and then that can maintain the boundary and help me get that decision-making power
Yes.
into myself.
Because the truth is, we want to be, whether it's personally or professionally, everybody wants to engage in equal level playing field conversation and relationships, not where I'm kissing your ass or self sacrificing for your benefit, where it's tilted always. To the extent that you do the, I don't know, I don't care, whatever you want, you're telling that person, my voice doesn't matter. Your voice matters more than mine. People pay attention. People will treat you the way that you tell them to treat you. So I love what you're doing. It's not trying to all of a sudden I'm going to be this
Yeah.
vocal,
Not full
very,
pendulum
yeah,
swing,
no, no,
not
no,
all or
because that's
nothing.
ridiculous. Finding small opportunities. If I was talking to my 25-year-old self, I would tell her, start getting curious. What do you want?
Yeah.
You don't there's not a time frame to answer it, but you wanna have an answer.
Yeah. And being curious and taking these small steps and like breaking out of too much empathy and finding yourself can help with that confidence that we were talking about earlier with presentation.
100%. 100%. And it really does ripple outwards. And confidence, you can only fake it for so long.
Exactly.
And even when you're faking it, you know you're faking it.
Hmm.
So it's not
Yeah.
a good thing.
Because fake it till you make it works until it doesn't.
Exactly. Exactly.
And I've also been trying whenever my friends text me and I'm offering a suggestion for a decision, I don't text them and say, no worries if not. Or like, it's okay if
Hmm.
you don't want to do that. I'll ask them the question. And if they say no, then I'll respect that. But I won't put myself out there as like a preemptive apology for asking.
I love that too because you said that, and I have a friend who does that kind of thing all the
Hmm.
time, and she has the best of intentions, and it's so polite, nice, but it also grates me every time I read it,
Yeah.
where
Because
it's
it's
like,
the full pendulum swing to too much empathy, people
yes,
pleasing, and
yes,
self sacrificing.
yes,
And it's definitely a learning curve to do it. But I think these small incremental steps can help build to these bigger things that we're talking about, which is like the values assessment,
yes,
figuring out the line of empathy that you don't want
yes,
to cross
yes,
without being like the self sacrificing and breaking the should trap mold while also trying to figure out what you want,
yes,
especially when you're looking at your life from the angles of the uncertainty.
yes, absolutely.
So, to close out and wrap up what we're talking about, I want to ask you so, as a perfect girl, it's easy to feel like a natural at things, feel like you're a good speaker, good at talking to
Mm-hmm,
people, really good at the masking that we've been talking
mm-hmm.
about. What would you say to someone who's out of school, thrown into real life, trying to escape expectation, and no longer feeling like their path is straight, but maybe like a roller coaster or a winding loop or
Mhm.
just a cliff that they're looking out into the fog and struggling to find empathy and how they want to present themselves to reflect their new selves after breaking out of the
Mhm.
mold? What would you say to them?
Several things come to mind. One of them is this idea of perfection, which again, I'm intimately familiar with. And I have, if I do a little assessment of my life, I've now, where I spend time and energy is in areas that I do really well in.
Mhm,
And so that's just, it's a real pretty neat little thing.
mhm,
So I think that there is a great deal of value in stepping outside of your comfort zone. Courage takes bravery to be uncomfortable. And I will tell you, looking inadequate, inept is worst case scenario for me. For people to look at me and think, Corey, like pity, or that's so embarrassing for her.
mhm.
There are a few things worse that I can think of.
In my last episode, I said I can think of a million things worse than no, and
Oh,
I think that's one of them. It's
yes,
like looking inadequate.
yes, like that. It's mortifying to
Yeah,
me. And I will do anything and everything to avoid that.
yeah,
However, nothing new happens if I don't do that. Nothing changes, nothing grows, nothing moves in a direction that I want it to or away from something I don't want it to. I I'm stagnant. A lot of times it has to get uncomfortable enough being stagnant to feel motivated to step into that discomfort. And that motivation could come not from feeling stagnant, because that's kind of where I am in my life, but like in 20s, it's not stagnant. It's just, what the hell am I doing?
Yeah.
I'm just flailing out here. You have to go through that part.
Yeah.
You cannot leapfrog it. It is also the least sexy thing on the planet. My mom's a therapist, and one of the things that she talks about all the time, I think about this a lot. If you think about a baby chick when they're coming out of their shell, they don't know what's about to happen. They just know, I'm uncomfortable as hell right now. I'm too big for this. This is not working anymore. I need to stretch. I need to get out of whatever it is I'm in. So they start cracking the shell open. And even then, it's like, I don't know where I'm stepping out into. It's nothing that I've ever seen or heard of before. I'm terrified. But the shell's broke. I mean, shit, I'm halfway out. This is happening.
Yeah.
And if you help the baby chick too much, they don't build up enough strength to then be able to walk and ultimately fly. They have to struggle through that. They have to go through that period of, oh my God, I'm stepping on something that I've never felt in my life. I don't even know what to even make up about this. Watching a chick come out of an egg, it is terrifying to watch. They're like on death's door. You're sure they're not going to make it. Their body is contorted in ways that it should not be. It's like, this is messy.
What a visual.
And how freaking badass. The same thing. I've been thinking about this a lot lately. I grew up water skiing. Have you ever seen somebody learn how to water ski? It's atrocious.
Yeah.
Right? There's nothing cool. Nothing looks good. It's embarrassing. You're all over the place.
You're wet, you're cold.
Exactly. You're like, normally I
The
can't.
boat has to come back get you.
Yes, it's like for some reason I'm doing the splits every time.
Yeah.
I'm like hunched over. It's you look stupid.
Yeah.
But when you are watching somebody learn how to ski, you're not thinking, God, that's so embarrassing. How come they haven't gotten it yet? Oh my God, you fell again? You suck. It's so embarrassing for you, seriously. You don't think that.
Yeah. And your friends might say that, but they don't mean that.
No, people are rooting for you.
Yeah.
They know that you're a novice. It's supposed to look messy and ugly.
Yeah.
And then you do it, and it's so exciting.
But then they're probably also thinking, wow, it's super cool that she's learning how to water ski. I wish I had the confidence to do that.
This is what I'm saying. You have to be willing for people to see it messy.
Yeah.
Because that's part of being a person.
Yeah.
And again, you're not special. You're messy too.
Yeah. In the best way.
In the messes are the part that people can connect to.
Yeah.
The messes are the good part. You stepping out of your comfort zone. But it means being an active participant in your life and being willing to have it look messy.
Thank you, Cory, for being on this podcast.
Thank you so much. This has been so much fun. I've loved this.
This was a really good conversation. Okay, well, thank you so much for listening to this podcast. If you want to follow and rate the podcast, any interaction really does help, or comment the ways that you have reflected this week to find your own self-confidence. If you want to follow the Instagram, it is darksideofperfect.pod. That is darksideofperfect, POD. I hope you're finding joy wherever you are today, and I hope that you are building confidence and finding that line of empathy that gives you the power that you want in your own life today. And I will see you next time.